to another really good episode of the Buffalo Game Space
It's a
podcast.
bit presumptuous.
No, I thought about it, thought about the day, how it's going so far, and I can tell this is going to be our best episode yet. I know what we've got in store.
I'm sitting here silently just to sabotage.
Because I got
Dead air.
I'm waiting for you to come in and help out with this bullshit. You're not.
Letting you hang out there.
Same team, like in Overwatch when you play on teams.
Oh, look at that masterful segue.
You like that?
Yeah. So Overwatch just announced some of the changes they're making for their competitive mode that people have been asking for since the game came out, basically. For the people who are hardcores that want to take it to the next level and play in skilled ranked matches or whatever they're calling them these days.
Yeah.
Just heard the first round of announcements of how that's going to be different and how they're going to structure them. And it sounds like the high level takeaways were they're breaking it up into seasons. So basically your progression gets reset for each season to keep people kind of coming back.
I like that.
And
I
making
like
it so
the idea
people
of
don't just
seasons.
ride to the top and then stay there forever.
Yeah.
So they also said initially they were going to do 1 month seasons, and they found out that was too short, but keeping it too long was a bit rough, so they're going to do seasons that kind of correspond with actual seasons. They're doing 3 month seasons starting with the summer series. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks, not even. I think it's about a week out, actually. And starting there, they're going to have 3 month seasons where there's going to be progression to tiers, but they're not doing tiers. They're basically just doing a skill-based system where you're going to get ranked from 0 to 100 on skill, and depending on what you do in the game and how well you play, you can either go up or down. Like once you've reached a skill level, you're not locked there, and you're like, yep, I've ground out this far. I'm at level 70. And I'll always be level 70. If you're level 70 out of 100 and you start playing like crap and not helping your team, you will go down in ranking to kind of keep things balanced out. So I'm sure some people are really happy to hear that, and other people are kind of like, well, that's kind of a bummer, especially since some people take these things too seriously. So yeah. I would expect to see a lot of the salt that goes on in between inter-team salt, I'll put it, is only bound to go up in these matches, because since it's such a team-based game, I gotta imagine your skill ranking is tied to kind of how well your teams do and how well you perform on that team partially. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhat individualized, but there's only so much you can do if your team sucks.
And the go-to is when you suck, a lot of people will say, oh, it's not me, it's my team.
Right. And that's
which is rarely the case.
But with this stuff, yeah, it's just going to get a little bit worse for those people, because now you have the possibility of going down in rank. So if you're a really high ranked player and you play in a match with a bunch of scrubs and your team's nowhere to be found, and like, let's just say you're like a healer or something, and your team is just like taking off away from you, they're not protecting you, they're not doing anything to help you do your job, like, well, it's going to look like you stink at your job, and you're probably going to go down in rank because your team kind of hung you out to dry because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And that's just a really kind of high, like, harsh edge case example of like what could possibly happen. And I know that I'm sure Blizzard's fully aware.
Oh, I mean, they're not the first ones to make this transition. Like Dota had this. Blizzard's doing it right away. Dota, this was a longer road where they use the same terminology Blizzard's using, which is your MMR, your matchmaking rating. And in Dota, that used to be completely at first you just couldn't see that. Like, it existed, and Valve was like very much like, yeah, we have a match, you're ranked according to your MMR, but you could never see it, and they were just not really interested in showing that to players. At some point, players just, I guess, really demanded it, and then it became a non-opaque system, or a less opaque, and so you could actually see exactly what your MMR was, and then for a while you could only see your own, and then it even got to the point where now you can see everybody's, and Blizzard's already just going right there with it. So I find that when I play ranked matches, I enjoy them far less than if I'm playing an unranked match. I just think the game is less fun all around. So
is that just purely based on the fact that now there's like stakes, and when things don't go right, then everybody's just a little bit too tense about it?
Exactly. I mean, the whole like people are not open to experimentation. They're not. They're like, you play the way that this character is played, and if you play it any other way, you're an asshole. And like, there's just, failures are just like bigger deals, and I just found everybody to be more toxic. And, nobody really cares. Nobody's happy when they win, but everybody's really unhappy when things aren't going perfectly. And that's just amplified. Like, that's just true no matter what mode you're in. And it's amplified when you're in matchmaking.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear kind of how they're laying it all bare. And they're like...
Sorry, not when you're in matchmaking. It's more true when you're in ranked matchmaking.
Right. So, I mean, they basically, for awareness, they announced also that in competitive play, when you search for a game and it match makes you, it's going to not only show your ranking, but it's also going to show everybody on your team's ranking and everybody on the other team's ranking, and give you like an average ranking of the teams, so you can see if your team is kind of the underdog or whatever. And they're also going to base your reward skill wise on your relative skill ranking. So if you matchmake in a game where the other team has way higher skill rankings than you and you lose, you're not really punished like your skill wise for that, because you're kind of almost expected to lose. But if you win, you get a ton of skill points because you basically took down a team that was supposedly better than you.
Right.
And they also have more on the line kind of against the underdogs, whereas like if they don't beat them, they can go down in rank.
But they go down
higher.
Less.
The underdogs go down less, but the team that's highly ranked, if they lose to the underdogs, they lose more.
Do they? I thought I heard them saying they don't lose as much if they lose.
No, they said the underdogs don't lose as much if they lose, because you're expected to lose. Because no matter what, if you lose the match, you go down a little bit, right? That's just the way the system works. But say you're the underdog and you win, you go up 10 points. But if you lose, you go down 1.
Yeah.
But if you're the favorite, and if you win, you go up 1 point. But if you lose, you go down 10 because you lost to a bad team.
It makes sense. I just didn't remember them phrasing it that way.
Yeah, they kind of just said like it's your risk and reward is kind of weighed. So like if you're on a favorited team, you kind of have more to lose.
Right.
But at the same time, you have a high probability of winning because you're on a supposedly good team that's proven that they're good.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of these kind of announcements of like when you jump into a game, everybody's going to see your skill number, and they're going to have their own skill number because everybody's super intense about knowing what their skill ranking is relative to everybody else, and what your team ranking is going to be, and how your team's going to go up or down, and yours can go down if you lose, and all this kind of stuff. And also it's going to tell you if anybody on the opposing team is in a party or not with other people, which I think is really interesting, because that's always something I wonder playing in quick play, is sometimes you see an opposing team just do like a huge turnaround, and you're like, these guys must be coordinating, like as more than just like typing in text chat.
Right. These guys are on mics.
Yeah, these guys are talking to each other. Because I've noticed really the only way to pull that off on my own side is if I'm in a party with other people.
And you're like,
and I'm like, listen, this is what we have to do. Yeah. And we all pull it together. Right. And it actually happens. Actually, just as a kind of an aside, we played this game at the LAN party last Saturday. We do a LAN party here at BGS every once in a while where we play a lot of retro old games that people have and hook them
like
up.
Overwatch.
Yes, but we ended the night with Overwatch after we played a bunch of really old stuff. We're like, all right, we'll play something new. Most of the guys here and gals already have it. So we fired it up.
Yeah, that's like become like everybody just kind of got that game.
I mean, it's a fun team game. There's a lot of different. I think one of the things that it brings to the table for a lot of people is the fact that there's so many different roles, and there's kind of always a role for somebody. You know, the people that aren't necessarily like Twitch shooters, like they can take headshots from a mile away. You can still play Reinhardt or Mercy or Lucio or whatever. There's roles, true. And if like sometimes people just want to play a certain way, there's somebody there for you, and there's probably a few people there for you if you're looking to learn a few players. Like, it's not all about Twitch-based headshots, and that people that don't care about Battlefield or Call of Duty don't care about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Yeah, so a lot of people got it, and so we played a couple of rounds, and we actually had one round where it was an attacking round. We took the first point barely. Like, we struggled to take A, and then we were limping our way to B, and then just getting cut down.
Yep.
And it was the typical team falling apart thing where everybody just started like running like one at a time into the wood chipper.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, stop going out there. Everybody stop it. I know you just spawned. I know you want to get back to the fight, but if you run back out there by yourself, you're going to die.
Right.
Like, we need to like team up here. And so we kind of slowly kind of got everybody back together. A few people just kept going back, and we slowly kind of like talked to everybody. All right, stop it. All right, we only have like 30 seconds left. We need to make this move. And we kind of all kind of grouped up. I was Lucio at the time, so I was kind of like running healing, and I had my ult, and his ult is basically in a radius around you. You just like give everybody around you like 500 shields
That shit is so good for initiating.
for like a temporary. It only lasts for like
Right.
if you don't take damage, it just
when
drains.
you're kicking down the door and you've got those shields up,
Right,
like that shit is
so like 30
crazy.
seconds left.
Yeah.
And we're all in the same room together. We're not even on mics. Like, I'm yelling across the room. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pop this, and then everybody run full speed at the point. Like, you take down Bastion, you take out, and we're just like, all right, go. And I popped it, and we all 6 of us just like like Mongols over the wall, just charging down like a Temple of Anubis is like just really like barren strip, and the whole whole other team was on their point just watching us come at them, and we just charged in there, wiped the team, took the point, won it last second. Like, they didn't get back. The other team was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And it was like 100% where if I was just playing online with other people, there was zero possibility of that even happening. Yeah. And like all the other guys here were just like, yeah, sweet, and they all
you
did.
Would be explaining it, and like one guy would already be fucking off and ruin it, and then you're just like, this is stupid.
Yeah, and all our guys here like did their roles, came in and took out the people, and like they all did their stuff perfectly, and it was like, yep, that was awesome. Like, that's exactly the name of the game. You know, if the team plays together, you win. Yeah. And if everybody tries to go one at a time, you lose, and that's kind of what's awesome about it. So to that kind of end is, I'm hearing them kind of talk about all the competitive stuff that they're doing, like laying your skills bare, and like all these like risk rewards and rankings and all this kind of shit. And all I'm hearing is just like, yeah, I don't want any part of this. Yeah. That's cool for those people that want to take this that seriously, but I don't care at all. And
really glad to hear you say that.
Just really sounds like that's a mode that I'll never play. I'll be happy to have those people out of my click play matches.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just makes people just get very mean and like for nothing. Unless you're the best players in the world, this shit doesn't matter at all.
Right. Yeah. And if you're the best player in the world, I don't want to play with you anyway.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't even care if you're on my team.
Yeah.
You're just annoying to me. Like, you're taking this too seriously.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that we keep coming back to that we kind of are constantly almost amazed by is how quick the games can play. Like, I can just jump in, play 2 rounds, and walk away. And that's why I've been able to even play some Overwatch recently, because I don't have a lot of time to mess around and play games these days.
The time to high quality play is like the shortest of any game you'll ever see. Yeah. Yeah.
And get a couple really fun rounds in. Like, all right, cool. I got to play a little game, and I'm going to go, make dinner, go take care of my house, or go keep working. Yeah. And it's real quick and easy. And this whole competitive angle of it just sounds like the exact opposite of that. People are just going to be in there, grinding it, racing to the top of the leaderboards, trying to be like the top dog, complaining at everybody else who isn't one of the top dogs, comparing with each other, being like, oh, somebody does a suggestion, they're like, well, fuck you, you're only level 53, I'm level 96, like, I'm fucking better than you, so you should listen to what I say. It's, no, your ideas still suck, and you're a shitty person.
Yeah.
So, I don't care. And it just, I get that some people are all about, like, this is all about skill, and I need to know, not only is it about skill, it's about my skill and how my skill relates to other people's skill, and that's the only thing that matters. And that's why they need to lay those numbers bare, and that's why they had to do it in Dota, because those guys are like, I know that I'm being rated on this, so now I need to know how I'm being rated. And not only that, that's not enough. I need to know, am I better than these other guys?
Yeah, I want to know, because when I lose, it's because it's unfair, and it's not because so I need to know the numbers so I can see that it's fair, because otherwise, what's the point? Just play a video game and have fun. It's like, if you can play, you need to go in and you need to be able to just play the game and have fun whether you win or lose. And
Yeah.
If you're not playing like that, you're defeating the purpose of playing a game.
Well, see, the thing is, like, I get that it's there, and some people want that. So, fine, sweet, have that, you know? Like, have that be a separate thing. Like I said, I think my favorite part about the announcement of this is that these people will now leave my quick matches alone.
Yeah.
And the tryhards that are part of the game that are, like, taking it a little bit too seriously and getting upset when one person makes a mistake will now have somewhere else to go and complain about it.
It
and
works.
have their own problems.
And what's nice, another nice thing is when you're in quick play and somebody's acting like that, you just say, okay, go play a matched game. If you're feeling this way and that strongly, you're in the wrong place. And it's nice to be able to say that.
Right. And I look at it kind of like, you know, your typical thing where it's like certain people take this stuff too seriously. That's exactly why they have leagues in sports. Like in like extracurricular sports, I guess I'll call them. Like, you know, if you're in like a company softball team, there's like the A League with like the tryhards
right.
of like it's all about like, oh, we're gonna go practice, we're gonna go take batting practice and like work on our fielding and like get everything square, and we're gonna go travel and play the other team and decide who's the best, and like competition in sports. And it's like awesome. Like that's kind of what sports is predicated around, is competition. It's also predicated around fun.
Yeah.
So that's why there's the beer league.
Yeah.
There's the D league
where it's like we completed a game. Yay.
Yeah.
Us.
It's like, hey, we're bringing everybody together. You know, we're playing everybody together. You're playing co-ed. You're playing with people that some people don't even know how to throw the softball, and other people are really good, but they're there just to have fun.
Yeah.
And like nobody's like, if somebody makes an error in the field, nobody's like, God damn it, like get out of here. Like you're ruining our team. They're just like, oh, well, that was a funny thing that happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, there's a keg in the dugout and whatnot. And it's more about coming together and having fun playing a game than it is like taking it dead serious. And it's always the worst when you have one of those guys that wants to be in like the A League on your beer league team.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking this too serious. Like that's not what we're here for. We're here to have fun. Go join another team if you want to like get hardcore about this.
And it should be like, I do want to clarify that I do think that there is definitely a place for that level of competition, and I think that can be really fun and rewarding and stuff. It's just that I don't know. It's just not what it's just when you stop and you think about it, it's a big waste of time usually, because you're not. No matter how much better you're getting or better, you're never at the top, but you're never at you're always in this like whatever space, no matter how good you get. So it's like, why, in a way? I mean, I there's times where I was playing Dota very competitively, and those were really rewarding sometimes. So yeah, I get it. It's just that's just not for me now, is all I mean. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. You know, it has its place and it should be supported.
Yeah, I'm glad they're supporting it. I honestly am very glad they're supporting
it.
It's just not what I want to do.
Give the people that want that outlet and get them off my beer team.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But it's interesting. I'm glad to see competitive stuff shaping up in that game. And, like, I really do think that Overwatch will be... I don't know. I do think Overwatch will be a breakthrough esport. I think it'll be that one or I still think Rocket League's still got a chance.
Rocket League's up there. I think when Overwatch, they, as part of their competitive announcement, they did also announce, just really kind of matter-of-factly briefly at the beginning of the announcement, that they've been working on new spectating tools, which we've already speculated about here a bunch of times. Like, I gotta imagine they're going to be working on like cinematic camera angles and ways to kind of replay things.
That's a logical extension of play of the game, right? Is just an automated like system that's detecting where the plays are for then you can extend that into a automated spectating mode, right? And stuff like that.
Like fly through, or even just like automated like cinematic cam, where it's like, instead of just showing play of the game, like here's the first person view of Widowmaker taking her play of the game sniper shot, it cuts to like a third person, like over the shoulder, like bullet cam, like Max Payne style, like where it goes slow mo and follows the bullet like through the level and then goes through like the opposing team player's eye, and like they could totally do that, you know, like
goes into their head, you can see their childhood.
You know, like do those like cinematic like kill cams that like other games have already done in different ways. Like once the game's over, there's nothing stopping you from like playing it back at different time speeds or from different angles. You know, it doesn't have to be a 1-to-1 of like what it's like. No, here's a really cool way to capture this moment that happened. Yeah, you know, and I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of like built-in replay stuff for like even people who are like commenting on like games that are happening at like pro level stuff, where like they'll be able to spin the camera back and like be like, all right, well, watch here where like this guy goes around the corner, like football tape. Like they'll be able to like draw and be like, watch, all right, so these guys over here, they shore up their defense here, and then they come around, and you can see how like the pincer attack fucking hits here, and
that is a thing that League of Legends had way longer before Dota. And when Dota, I would watch pro Dota games. I think only in the past year or so, maybe 2 years, has Dota brought have the pro game casts had that replay going on. They didn't used to have it in Dota, and it was a huge missing feature because like, especially because like compared to League, Dota is like twice as fast as League, and yeah, that feature is really important and really useful when you're spectating, because even as somebody who played a lot, things would happen and I would just be like, I didn't even realize, like the casters are going crazy, and I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, I don't even see a thing important happening or exceptional. So like those replays are really important in pro esports.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see like if this thing becomes like a more of a spectator event, that a single play of the game is like not going to be the thing. It's going to be like, it's going to capture different moments and be able to it'll allow playback of like a bunch of different moments that happened in the game, from like cool camera angles and like kind of showing off what people do. Also the kind of like that card system at the end of the game that we talked about like a couple of weeks ago, how when the round ends, it kind of shows 4 kind of highlight stats of people that played, and everybody gets like 1 upvote. Like extending that to the audience, I think is a no-brainer.
Yeah,
and then also going beyond that, like right now it shows like 4 cards, like, and like 1 stat per card. Yeah. Like sometimes I had one where I think I was playing as McCree, and it gave me a stat of like 12 fan the hammer kills or whatever. I'm like, that's not even really what I did that round. Like that, but that's a stat that it put up. But I had like 4 gold medals because I had spent like the most time on the objective. I had spent like the most time like working with like the team and like objective kills and like the stuff that happened on the point. I was like, why didn't it say that?
Yeah.
But in the spectator mode, if like people are watching, like I would believe that they could show all 12 like player cards. Like after the match is over, they could be like, here's all 12 players, their stats for that last round, like right up on there. Yeah. And have people like vote online, like who's the MVP.
Right.
And maybe it's like not even the best stats guy, be like, this guy was the most fun to watch, and somebody gives them their vote. Like, you know, it just kind of allows, it's another level of audience participation that I think has been lacking in a lot of like the Twitch stuff. I've always felt like that was missing. Like,
it's true. Yeah,
games are such an interactive thing,
right?
Like it's like if you're watching a baseball game, it's kind of almost like watching a movie. Like it's like it's passive. You're watching it. You're not really taking part of it. I guess in the same way, like watching an esport, it's the same thing.
But it doesn't have to be. That's the thing.
But you have that stuff. If you're watching it on a device, you have a means to input, right? So you could have that happen at the end of the match, or you could even have things like live score sheets like being updated. Yeah, like there's people who go to the ballpark, at least there used to be, they'd bring their own freaking scorecard. Like they'd bring their own thing and like mark down like who got hits, like who got on base, and kind of keep their own program going of like everything that happened, take some notes on it, like, oh, this happened in the 3rd inning, like this guy did this, like, and they're kind of taking it by hand. And that's like just the old school representation of like people nowadays. You could just have that going.
Right.
You could have that going in like the bottom right hand corner, like pop up
it.
At any point. You could have people just pop up and just be like, yeah, well, I wonder how this person's doing, and see like their live stats for the round, and having those kind of tools available. So I feel like it's only a matter of time if they're not working on these things. You know, I don't feel like I'm the only person who's had these thoughts.
Right.
Like, it's definitely got to be out there in the ether somewhere. Somebody's working on like having this, like the interactivity to.
Well,
it doesn't even have to affect the game. Like it doesn't. It's not like it affects the outcome of the game. It just gives a little bit more audience participation, where it's kind of like
the players don't even need to know about it. They may not. It may be, like they may not see all the people vote or whatever. It doesn't have to. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it could just be like after the match, like the Blizzard MVP goes to like the team that the guy that the algorithm picked to be like the best player, but the friggin' Viewer's Choice Award goes to like this guy who was jumping off of cliffs and blowing people up, and just everybody's laughing at it or whatever. Like giving like that extra kind of approval or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, recognition to players that make the game interesting to watch or do cool things. And I wouldn't be surprised to have people like, start to have fans, just like Twitch streamers do already. Yeah. Like when they play games or whatnot, having these guys on teams, like they have their own fans. And like
for some reason, I picture a lot of the Overwatch, like I feel like people will latch onto the characters over the players personally. If it becomes like a more like I don't know, widely accepted sort of pastime to watch these games, I just see people latching onto the characters over the actual players.
I don't know about that per se. I mean, I get what you're saying. The characters have a lot of personality and a lot of like unique look to them that people are going to gravitate towards or identify with certain characters more than others.
Exactly.
But outside of that,
I think there'll still be a strong following behind players and stuff. I think kind of like as we discussed previously, it's like one of the biggest things about the game is being able to play more than one character, and I'm interested to see how like the competitive play is going to showcase that, because I feel like there's going to be people who kind of specialize in certain characters here and there, but I'd be pretty shocked to see some of the high level players like completely just refuse to switch character when the character they're good at is useless for the game mode that they're in. I don't think you'll see switching that much just because of the alts. I think people will probably try to.
Well, that's kind of like a different metagame that we discussed, where it's like once you've popped your ult, and if your you've used it, and your character no longer kind of has a place in the current state of the game, then it behooves you to switch to do something else and to respond to something, and that could lead to really kind of dramatic moments where it's like when you're playing the game, it does lead to dramatic moments within the game, but if for spectators, it could be a thing where it's like this dude's been playing Hanzo the whole time, and now like a sniper's useless in this situation right now, and he switches to Roadhog and comes charging out the gate as this huge guy, and everybody's like, "Oh shit!" Here comes Roadhog, and it totally throws a wrench in the whole game, and it switches it all up. Like teams that can throw off the other team are going to be way stronger than teams that are just really good with one guy. Like I just gotta imagine that.
Oh, for sure.
Like it's those, and they're gonna be more fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna get bored watching. It's like, oh, this team just plays this configuration. They all pick the same character.
Oh no, I don't think
time.
that'll happen. I think every game will be pretty dynamic, but I don't think within a match there will be a lot of switching.
I think there will be
at the pro level.
I think there will be definitely, and I think it will be part of the pro strategy even that like
switching often.
Switching like at certain points in the match for sure. Like Symmetra on like a defense match, like in the beginning, like she's really effective at like trying to like shore up doors, and like the teleporter means a lot more when you're defending A than it does when you're defending B.
Yeah.
So like once if your team's lost A, switching to another character is sometimes a better strategy. Like it's not she's not as effective in that role. Same thing with like a sniper. It's not necessarily good to have like as valuable to have a sniper like on certain maps attack at certain points. Like just as the map points change, teams will probably have strategies like, okay, on A we're coming at it with this configuration. If they hit us with this configuration, you switch to this, you switch to this. If we lose A, I'm switching to this, you switch to that. Like I feel like that's going to be like the meta game.
Yeah,
of like,
you're right.
And it's also going to throw a monkey wrench.
But that only works plans. In like certain modes.
Well, especially when you're hitting the 2 points. Yeah. I mean,
I can't believe you guys are talking about Overwatch again.
Oh, I came in and I said totally like we're talking about Overwatch. I want to make sure we do it while you're here so that you can grit your teeth.
Your mic is off though. Hang on.
But actually, I think we're about done with that.
Yeah.
A whole quick pause. No, I was just talking about it with Pismarov, about Hanzi and Genjo.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what that means.
His friend called him that the other day, and now it's like...
Hanzi and Genjo?
Yeah.
What is it? It's Hanzo
and Genji.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's like, nah, Hanzi and Genjo is way more fun to say. Hanzi.
So
beyond...
we're back
Woohoo!
with
And I'm here.
Kendall.
Yeah.
So...
We're going to talk about something other than Overwatch.
We are,
once in
for
our
sure.
lives.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, well, first off, fucking summer sale started.
Summer sale started yesterday
Yeah. Which I barely looked at.
for all
Yeah.
you out there in the future.
Yeah. I barely looked at it, and then everybody else is making awesome YouTube videos and
Yeah.
dumping crazy money and buying all the things.
I saw the one Lord of the Rings video posted several times to our chat channel.
You mean the Game of Thrones video?
Is it Game of Thrones?
It's Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings. Get the fuck out of here.
Fantasy nerds. What is it really?
I saw the Star Trek video.
I'm
George
a pretty big
Lucas
Star
made
Trek
that,
fan, so I
yeah.
recognized it instantly.
No, yeah, that was a Game of Thrones video. Yeah, they're getting pretty elaborate.
That one really was It was pretty
Having
good.
Gabe pop up out of the water as all the boats are burning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that just started, so it got me looking into some of the VR games out there that I wanted to pick up. And in typical fashion, all of the games I was waiting for and hoping to be on sale, none of them are. They're all just
course.
like, nope, same price, tough
Really?
shit.
Which ones?
I wanted to get the Apollo 11 VR. Like, I wanted to
And
try
that
that
one's
out.
not
Not on sale.
That sounds cool.
Horseshoes, hot dogs, and hand grenades. Also not on sale. Yeah, I was kind of bummed about that. So yeah, those were the top two. The other one was I was going to wait on Audio Shield, but clearly I didn't.
Yeah, no, you
Because
didn't.
we've been playing Audio Shield here.
Very grateful for that.
Yeah, semi-regularly. It's
Doom
pretty
went
fun.
very on sale for a game that's not been out that long.
Yeah.
How much off is it?
Like 45% or 40 or
wow.
45.
Really?
Yeah. It's pretty high.
Is the game not doing well or something?
I think it's
Maybe
doing pretty well.
not. It was received well. I mean, I know
Yeah.
everybody I know that it was reviewed well and a lot of people like it. But yeah, I mean, that's the only explanation is that it's just not
Not
getting the
selling.
sales
Yeah.
they need.
Or they're just trying to get a bigger player base.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, one of those things, like, I don't know if anybody's playing multiplayer Doom, but anything like that, it's kind of, you need a player base.
Yeah.
You know, so it almost behooves you to go on sale to just get more
Exactly.
people playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something like that. Yeah.
One also everybody kind of talks about is like once things go on sale, like, oh, they're not doing well, so they went on sale. It's like, no, they just wanted a big spike in. They
wanted you to buy it.
They needed money to end this quarter, and so they put the thing on sale, and they're gonna have a massive boost in sales, and they're probably gonna end up making more money overall by selling it for 40% off than they would have
Yeah.
if they just left it full price.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an indication
Yeah.
if they're doing well or not. So I mean, if they were really struggling, they would have done something sooner. Like, it's been pretty much at flat launch rate since it came out.
Yeah.
So, but part of this is a game that has been on sale and not on sale on and off throughout its entire history. Elite Dangerous is now on sale again. And I'm finally to the point where it's like, I might have to pull the trigger on this game because I've heard a lot of people talk about it. And then there were some things that the game did that I didn't even know it did. Like, I always knew it as like a really kind of supposedly realistic, flying around in space, investigating galaxies and solar systems, like mining asteroids, kind of go fly off into the world and see what's out there kind of thing. And it sounded really cool, but it also sounded like maybe it could take a lot of time and maybe be a little bit boring or whatever. I don't know what else you can do. And I was talking to Chuck about it on Friday, and he was saying basically, yeah, it's like really sweet when you like find like a new planet that like nobody's been on, and you like fly down and like drive around. I'm like, wait, you can drive around and shit on this? He's like, oh yeah, like if
I didn't know that either.
He's like,
That's like the first Mass Effect almost.
yeah, that's what I said. I was like, it's not a friggin' Mako, is it? And he's like, I liked the Mako stuff. I'm like, all right, well, you're that guy. But-
Yeah.
I didn't like driving the Mako, but being able to explore is kind of cool.
Yeah, no,
it was
exactly.
like-
Like, I liked the exploration aspect of it. I didn't like it when you had to like fight in it.
I didn't like hitting a pebble and going 90 feet into the air.
Yeah,
That too, yeah.
Well, yeah, it was glitchy and stupid. But that was also like 2 generations ago almost. So, yeah, he's like, oh yeah, like with one of the first expansions they put out for the game allows you to get basically an RV that, like, when you go down through the atmosphere, you can land on a planet and basically pop out in like a drivable vehicle and like cruise around on the planet and try to find stuff and like ancient ruins and shit. I'm like, really?
What?
Like, I didn't even know this was even in there. He's like, yeah. He's like, and there's 2 scores in the game. There's like dogfighting score that you get, like you raise your dogfighting level by like getting in space fights and flying around and becoming a badass pilot and whatever. He's like, but there's also an exploration level that you get by basically exploring new solar systems and like landing on planets and like mapping them out and like finding what's out there and like it's like he's like that's the only shit that I sound like I like. He's like, I don't even care about the dogfighting.
Yeah.
I just cruise around and find stuff.
It sounds like No Man's Sky, what it is promising to be almost.
Yeah, kind of. So it's like he's like, if you want to get in dogfights and stuff, I was like, that's out there, but like really it's like, because that's that didn't draw me as much, and it's kind of, if I want to do the dogfighting, I've got Eve Valkyrie and that does that really well. So it's like, is it better than that? Probably not, since it's really kind of Eve is really predicated on purely dogfighting. There's really no flying around exploring the galaxy in your ship.
Have you played Eve though?
Yeah,
you played it.
Yeah. It's really, it's well put together. It's a really polished game. It feels really good. It looks nice. You guys are on your phones.
I'm looking at the game.
Or am I not listening to what you're saying? Am I failing to respond?
Yes. Because it was just dead air.
No, I was looking up how much
you stopped talking
Elite
to say we were on our
Dangerous was
phones.
off, and I also realized that the user reviews are all mixed, and that's kind of interesting because you said that a
Elite?
lot of people, have been, like,
so
saying it's positive.
well, that's Elite is one of the best examples of the thing that we joke about around here every once in a while, of somebody being like, Steam review, like, okay, like 2,957 hours in game. Like, this is the best game I've ever played. I love it. I've spent hours and hours in it. There's no content left. Thumbs down. Can't recommend.
I heard that game really falls apart after 800 hours.
Yeah, no, like literally, I think one of the top reviews for that game. I don't know if it's still there, but it for one point it was some guy who had hundreds of hours in game, and he was complaining about the lack of content.
Yeah.
And he's saying he's like, I've done everything there is to do in this game. Now I'm bored with it. Thumbs down. And it's like, what? You've done everything to do in the game. You enjoyed it all the way up to the point, and it's like, now you're done. Well, yeah, your games aren't supposed to be infinite pleasure.
Right,
I paid $40. I expected an experience that parallels and is as rich as my real life.
Yeah, and it goes on until I die.
Yeah.
And thereafter.
Yeah.
Couldn't play game in Afterlife. Thumbs down.
I really want to go.
No
make
ghost
that comment
support.
now.
lack of ghoul support.
Sorry,
Developer
this is-
discriminates against zombies.
Yeah, I was going to say that. There you go. Thank you.
This game's very living centric. But anyway, yeah. So it's been in mixed reviews for a while, but it doesn't surprise me in the sense that it doesn't seem like it's a game for everybody. And at certain points, it's gotten pops in like popularity or like
Elite Dangerous
coverage.
you're talking about?
Yeah. It's got pops in coverage and whatnot as they've done more stuff to it, but it seems like a game that's steadily been growing for a few years now of like content they've added. It sounds like a lot of the stuff they did in the game is like, it works really well, and it's not like it's completely, it doesn't fall apart and whatnot. It's just certain people don't like cruising around in the stars, and they just want the game to be go to checkpoint A and fight the boss and get a pat on the back. And if they don't get, and it's like, oh wait, I'm supposed to create my own fun. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
thumbs
definitely
down.
a difference between like people who are more like objective driven and more just like, I want to see what the hell's out there.
Yeah, like, and I'm more definitely interested in it specifically because, like, the idea of just being like, all right, I can jump in my little jalopy spacecraft and
Pick a direction
and pick a
go.
direction and blast the hyperdrive until I almost run out of fuel and like land on some alien planet and just to see what's there.
Right.
Like, that sounds really cool. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even care if there's like, I find a golden temple, or if it's like, oh well, I just fucked up. Ain't nothing here. Like, it's just the idea of like doing that and kind of tooling around is kind of more interesting right now. I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't entertain me for 2,000 hours,
Right.
but as especially in kind of a VR representation that they've been supporting since the DK1 was out. The Elite was one of the first games to have native DK support. So they've built their cockpits and their HUDs and stuff with VR in mind for the past couple of years, so it's always been kind of on the list of VR player games. And I could see how if it wasn't your cup of tea and you're playing it on just like a flat monitor and you're not doing the VR thing and you're playing it with mouse and keyboard, like that's one thing. But it's like if you're into space and exploring stuff and you've got a flight yoke and you've got a VR headset, it sounds like it's really cool. So I need to try it out. I need to stop talking about it and just play the damn thing.
Yeah. It's $20. It's worth it.
Well, another game that just came out and it was at the top of the VR sales list for, I don't know, it's only been out for like a week. You said you were looking at.
Yeah, the Solus Project.
Yeah.
That looks freaking cool.
I don't think I know anything about
it. It looks really pretty. Like it caught me right out there because I was looking for VR games the other day just to see what's new, and it's at the top sellers, like hot new list or whatever. It's like the number one seller on Vive Games, and the trailer just like looks really pretty. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I saw like there's like 5 trailer videos on Steam. And it was in my queue because I was going through my queue, and I saw the trailers like before I came over here yesterday, and I started like hyperventilating. I was just like, oh my god, I need this game right now.
So do you own it now?
Yes, I do.
Have you played it yet?
No,
unfortunately. We're keeping you from it?
Maybe.
Oh, damn it.
Really, it's my homework that's keeping me from it, so you know.
I see.
2 more weeks, I'll be free. I'm gonna play it all day long. My mom's gonna hate me. No, but I mean, yeah, like what you're saying, it looks so beautiful, and like just being in that sort of space in like VR would be like so amazing, and like just I don't know.
And from all I've seen so far is it's like you're in environments. You're kind of like your typical. You wake up on an alien planet, like. And figure out what the hell's the hell's going on, like what's going on in this place, and there's clearly like a history to the planet and like what's going on, and trying to uncover that. Yeah, it's kind of a well-worn path at this point, but it looks like the implementation of this one, it seems pretty interesting. Look, everything that I saw was all basically atmospheric, environmental, like alone on an alien planet, like and like seeing kind of crazy things and figuring your way through it. But I don't know if that's representative of like gameplay yet, so that's why I'm really interested to see what you think of it. And
yeah, definitely. We have to hook up my my Steam to your VR and we can play it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we probably could do that.
Yeah. Go check it out. Just check it out after the podcast. Just play around.
just walk around. Yeah. Like, oh, look at that thing. That's cool.
I was just looking at screenshots. It looks like a thing I could get into.
Yeah. I like literally, I'm not even kidding. I started hyperventilating after I saw like the trailer. So just like, oh my gosh.
Wow, it's a good trailer.
I should stay away from this trailer. It sounds like.
It's not good for your health at all.
Well, the little twisty tornado coming out of the clouds,
yeah, the little
and,
like the black
coming down, and then like the rain clouds and like the underground temple, and like they kind of just like hinted all these environments that you're going to be able to find and explore.
It looks so cool.
And so that's why I'm just really interested to see how it actually plays. Like how much time between all those environments, what can you do in each one? I mean, is it just like here's environment A, here's environment B? There's nothing really to do there other than like uncover clues or something. Yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because it's sort of pitched as like you have to figure out like what is going on with this planet and like who was here before and like why they left and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if it's sort of going to lean towards like the sort of puzzle game side of things where you have to like figure out like ancient puzzles or whatever, or if it's going to be like you just find like remains or like logs or something like that, or a mix. I mean, it's that sort of like little black like spiky cloud looking thing seems to be like the only sort of like malevolent force in the game, and I'm sort of like very interested in that, like is what role that plays. So
I'll be interested to hear what's actually out there, because it seems like the next extension to kind of what I was talking about of like an Elite Dangerous type of like atmospheric and environmental, like go explore it kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully it's got legs and there's some cool stuff in there other than pretty pictures. Yeah. Although that's probably enough to kind of sell it at this point.
Definitely, yeah. But speaking of No Man's Sky, does that have a release date yet or no?
They pushed it back like 2 months. I think it was supposed to be out by now. Yeah, and then they pushed it to August something, I believe.
Okay, so that was coming out soon then.
Yeah, they only pushed it back like a couple of months, and then everybody freaked out.
Well, they've been pushing it for years. I mean, it keeps getting pushed. I mean, I don't think anybody should freak out, but
honestly, I mean, on one hand, like, if you keep doing it over and over again, it gets annoying. But, like, if a developer is saying, like, well, you know, give us, like, a little more time, we're going to make it better.
Yeah.
Like, right, exactly. I want
I'd
the game
rather
to be
them
better.
push it. If it's not ready to go out,
Yeah.
It's just, again, people thinking they're owed something, even though it's a product they're paying for.
Right,
You're not
right.
owed any. It's an even transaction.
Yeah.
They ran a Kickstarter, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. God, it's been so long.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm wondering if, like, do they have backers or they just have people that are fans and are watching it? Because I feel like they ran a Kickstarter at some point.
I don't know.
But yeah, at a certain point you got to launch. It's hard to get there though.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's something that definitely draws me into, like, these games is the idea of, like, infinite.
Yeah,
No Man's Sky boasts, like, procedural generation for its universe and stuff like that. And, you know, just that idea that you can just go and go and go and, like, always find, like, new stuff. And, like, I love that about games. I mean, I think that might have been sort of what drew me to Minecraft originally, where it's like, oh, yeah, like, no two worlds are going to look the same, like, you know, etc. You can always go to, like, new biomes and stuff, but, like, I feel like this is, like, on a whole nother level. It's like you get, like, completely different you know, species and stuff like that on different planets.
I'm interested to see because, like, I've seen this kind of attempted. Like, Starbound almost did it. Mm-hmm. The Starbound kind of tried to do something like that, and it just really was not that interesting. Yeah, it really just felt like recombinations of the same shit. Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest worry about it. We've talked about it a bunch of times. It's like the promise of infinite is guaranteed to fail, right? Like,
I mean, nothing's going to be infinite.
Nothing is truly infinite, and so it's at how long does it take before people see the seams?
Yeah,
right.
Like, how long does it take before that first review pops up that says I'm 300 hours into the game? I can tell when I land on a new planet, I can tell you what type of fauna and flora is going to be there, and now it's going to be purple or whatever. And, like, I figured out the seeding algorithm, or, like, how long is it going to take players to kind of crack that nut, or if not crack that nut, just feel like they've cracked that nut, and then, like, all right, I get it. Oh, these things walk on 3 legs. That's cute. I saw one that were 4 legs like a while back, but they're pretty much the same thing other than that, and, like, and not be excited by it. Because I'm sure, like, that first 10 to 20 hours experience is going to be awesome for, like, most people that are looking forward to this. Is like, but beyond that, does it have legs to continually, like, excite you and make you want to come back and find a new planet? Or do you just be like, oh, this is one of these planets, and there's some wikis start popping up where it's like, there's really only 4 kinds of planets, like type A, B, and C. And if you're on a C-type planet, then you need to go here, and like that kind of shit starts popping up because at some point it's not perfectly randomized, you know.
But and, like, definitely there's no way to really get around that, but, like, if it manages to pull it off where that happens at, like, hour, like, 800 or something instead of, like, hour, like, 2, you know. If it's, like, put off, like, enough, like, you don't notice it right away, that I'm still happy with it.
Because I mean, even in other games, like, that are really kind of lauded for their density and variety, like Skyrim or, like, Fallout or whatever, like, you can get a sense of it, and you kind of know what it can do and it can't do, and you kind of lose that sense of awe of finding new places. But it usually takes most people like 40-50 hours before that even starts to set in, and some people can go hundreds before, like, they're like, oh, I found a completely new environment, like, loses its life. I mean, that's why they have DLC and stuff, you know. It's a completely new environment. If you're still into the game at that point, like, and that can keep you drawing back, then that's going to keep you playing. But if somebody's dropped 100 hours in vanilla Fallout 4 and they put out a DLC and all it's really bringing to the table is new environments and, like, a couple of new characters, I was like, yeah, well, I've played it long enough that I can kind of see through the matrix and I get it. So new environment doesn't do it for me.
Right.
You know?
And also, like, what you said, what happened with you in Fallout 4 is you just got so, like, OP that it was just sort of like, I mean, what am I doing here now?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the DLCs, eventually, the games like that, they end up raising the level cap. Or doing something where, like, there's new crazy hard bosses that were harder than anything else that was in the game before. So there's, like, something to actually challenge you. But some of that stuff just, when it feels arbitrary, it feels kind of... It almost kind of is irritating to me in a different way. Like, if I've got my character who's one-shotting Deathclaws, and then you're just like, new DLC is out, now it's going to take you 100 shots to kill one.
Yeah.
With the same build out. And it's like, what happened to all my power?
Right, exactly.
Like, now I'm weak. Did I start the game over? What just happened? Or you just like made every character like immune to my abilities. Like, well, that's kind of cheating what I've done.
Yeah, it's like making it difficult or like more difficult for difficulty's sake instead of like adding like a new component.
That's what a lot of people complain about, like scaling enemies, right? Like when you have like enemies that scale with you in those kind of open world games, is that at a certain point your level progression doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like if it takes you 20 hits to kill this kind of enemy, and you get a better gun and you level up and you get more skills, and then you come across that enemy again and it takes you 20 hits to kill that enemy.
Yeah.
Because they also leveled up.
Right.
Like it keeps a baseline of interest where you're not just steamrolling every enemy, but until there's kind of like that tipping point one way or the other. And that's partially what happened with my character in Fallout was like, they kind of keeps that baseline for a while because they scale with you.
Yeah.
But there's certain skills and abilities in conjunction with each other that no amount of enemy scaling could stop me anymore.
Right.
And that's when my character became OP. But it took a while for me to get there. It took I had to do a lot of different things that kind of led up to this ability where like now I can walk into a room and kill you all and you can't stop me. Because they do kind of like level with you up to that point where it's like, oh yeah, my gun it was doing 120, now it does 150 damage. Well, now the enemies have that much more health. So it's kind of like you're just maintaining that level.
Do either of you watch Zero Punctuation? Yeah. Something that Yahtzee said during his review of Fallout 3 sort of really stuck with me about just sort of how you get powerful pretty quickly in that game, and then for like a certain amount of the game you sort of just go around like feeling like you're on top of the world, etc. And like I feel like something like that. I mean, obviously, Fallout 3 is a sort of a linear story. You get to the end of the game, and it's the end of the game. But like that feeling where you get to a certain point, and like that you're like the toughest thing out there, and like you kind of ride that for a little while, and then the game ends. Like it's sort of. I sort of agreed with what he said about that. It's sort of balanced pretty well, like for the game. But then for something like, Fallout 4 or like any sort of open world game, like you get to that point, but there's no like hard stop end to the game. So you just sort of keep feeling powerful, and then it's like, oh well, now there's no challenge. Right.
So I mean, it's been documented a million times, but really the target for any role playing game, be it open world or even like a linear one, is always to kind of have like the rising conflict, right? So it's a constant ebb and flow of challenging the player, rewarding them with more powerful gear or skills, letting them use that more powerful gear and skills to wreck house for a little while, and then make it so that those aren't quite enough to take on what's coming up next, and then ratcheting up the challenge, and then when they beat that challenge, giving them a new higher set of stuff, which then they kick everything's ass for a while. It's always like, give a little bit of challenge, and then reward the player by just making them feel like a badass for what they just pulled off for a while, and just making the game easy as shit. Like, it's like, oh, you pulled that off? Now you're so badass, anything that steps you, you're just going to fucking murder it.
Yeah.
Power fantasy full on.
Yeah.
But then it's not quite enough, and then it's really not enough, and then challenge them again, and then reward them and let them fucking wreck house, and then go, and it's just but it's always on like an upward trajectory, right? If you map it out, it's kind of like a sine wave, kind of tipped 45 degrees angle. It's like you go up to the challenge point, and then you do that, and then there's kind of like a falling action of like, okay, the game's easy for a little bit, now raise the challenge, but that new raised challenge is higher than that first peak that you hit. Right. And it's making those peaks go higher and higher, so like the end challenges are so much higher than the first ones that you got to, but it's always giving the player like a breath, a dip in the middle of like, I just got this new sword, isn't this sweet? I can kill everything with one hit in this thing. But then you get into a new area, and that sword ain't killing thing in one hit. And now you're like, oh no, like, so, but there's no point in getting a new sword if it's not better than the old one, right? Like, if you got a new sword and it was weaker than the one you got before, players are like, what the fuck is this? And if it's exactly the same and it doesn't do it doesn't affect your ability to
just
win.
Like, why don't I just use the first one?
Yeah, why don't I just keep you? And people will min-max that all day. And like, it's all about, there's no point to increasing powers of gear if it has no effect on your ability to win. But also making sure that ability to win is temporary. Because if you get that new gear and then you just crush everything forever in the game. Now you're OP and the game's no fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's you always have to ride that wave of kinda,
Yeah, and sorry, hold on for just a second. And part of his point in that was like with a lot of games, you get like the most powerful weapon in the game like right before the last fight. You use it once, and it's just sort of like, well, great, like I used it once. And he said like the balance was like, you know, you don't reach that right before the end. You reach it like a little bit longer before the end, so that you have time to like enjoy instead of just using like the, you know, like, powerful weapon X once. Go ahead.
Dark Souls handles this really well, which is that
Here we go again.
you we're talking about Overwatch after this,
I'm gonna leave.
which is that
Can't deal with you guys.
that exists, and there's certainly gear that's like better than other gear and such, but that whole wave is largely predicated on your understanding and skill. So what'll happen is you'll come into a zone and you'll just be like, this shit is fucking tough, like this is ridiculous, and you'll just claw your way through. But by the end of the zone, you know how the enemies work.
You know
their
patterns,
tricks. You know the general tricks of the zone, and you kind of internalized it all. And so by the time you're kind of cleaning up, and you're like, this game's not that hard really. And then you go into the next zone, and there's a new enemy that just does some shit that you're like, this shit is fucked. This is the hardest part of the game.
Yeah.
And then same cycle, and it keeps going like that. And that is, it works so well there's still a leveling system there, and there's still a gear progression system there, and that stuff still matters, but like it's not as like Fallout ends up being so item and skill based that you eventually run out. Like it's this like thing where you just kind of trump the world by default, whereas like I don't know, like in Dark Souls, you're more integrated into that process, and when you hit that point of like, I can just fuck everything up, it's because you learned how to fuck everything up. And it's not because like you got the sword of fucking everything up, you know? Like it's a whole different like thing that really just makes it feel less trivial when you do become very powerful. You don't feel like it's arbitrary. You don't feel like, well, I just got all the gear and like none of this stuff matters. It's like, oh no, I did that.
Right. And that's also partially part of the trick. I mean, if you just look back at like simplest possible example, like 8-bit, like Final Fantasy, right? Like the battle system is purely menus. Like it's purely menus with very little even shown on screen.
Yeah.
That's kind of some cool sprite art, but it barely moves.
Yeah.
You know, it's really just kind of just on screen, and the character, it's all just
They'll like flicker it.
it's all numbers. Yeah, it's all numbers underneath the system and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the way you win that game is by learning the systems, learning like what you need to do to survive, like how many potions are you carrying, like what do you don't go into a cave like not carrying healing items and not having your team like up to snuff to handle the enemies that are the level they are in that cave, like making sure they're the right level, making sure you know what to use when, like resource management, making sure like you protect certain characters against the boss, like using the right spells against the right enemies that are weak against them, and like these are things you learn by playing the game. And then you use that knowledge to beat the boss.
Right.
And it gives you, and you win experience and new gear and like a new quest to go fight harder bosses. And that new gear makes those enemies that you just learned how to beat and kind of strong, it makes them trivial.
Right.
And that gear, but it's not the fact that you learned how to beat them and like, you're rewarded for learning how to beat them by not having to struggle against them anymore. It's like, all right, I mastered these systems. Now I have the sword of fucking up this level enemy.
Yeah.
And so if I see them again, I don't have to like scrawl and clutch and play every move perfectly. I can now just stomp them and be like, but I was rewarded for doing that by learning how they play, learning what I have to do against them to kind of scratch and claw my way by them. Now the game's like, okay, good job. You don't have to worry about those guys anymore.
Right.
Put your eye on these guys. They're way harder. And the stuff that you just got that stomps them, it'll help you against these new guys, but it's not going to stomp them, and you got to learn how they play.
Yeah.
And like those games are very much about, you know, I mean, since they're purely kind of menu based, like those games are really, you know, they're really tactical. They're almost like, you know, they're almost like chess in a way with like smaller play sets. And
Yeah.
Even Blade even more bare if you play like the Tactics series, like Final Fantasy Tactics. It's like straight up a 3D grid that you kind of move around your characters on, and you have to play that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always that kind of ebb and flow of like that's what the gear and levels are for, is to kind of make these enemies that were a huge pain in the ass until you learned how to beat them not a problem anymore.
Yeah. Dark Souls will not do that for you though. Like once you understand and you really just kind of like these issues are not these enemies are not an issue anymore. What'll happen is like you'll come across one later in the game, one that you've already mastered, but you just didn't engage it with the full like I guess respect it deserved, and you'll just die. Even though like you've got better stuff. It's like you didn't take it seriously enough and you forgot, oh yeah, these guys are still fucking strong. And it'll punish you for that. And that I like that part of it.
Yeah.
But it's such a different thing to like when you remember like, oh, these guys are a non-issue because I'm good. It's not because like I got the sword of non-issue again. And that's such a unique thing about, and something I really enjoyed about the progression in Dark Souls, and I guess continue to enjoy, is like you're never really done with anything in that game. You're only like you're better, but you're truly better. You're not.
And it's interesting because one of the complaints that I've heard about Dark Souls 3 specifically is like that the weapons that you get aren't really an improvement. I mean, maybe they're not like the fuck you sword, but like they're not that much of a step up from what you like start with,
right? Which is so cool. Something that's
and it's interesting because like some people like you are totally into that, and then some people like my friend are just like why is my sword the same as the one that I started this game with? Like, come on, like yes, I know how to fight the enemies, but like can we have like a little bit of like betterment?
But there is some of that. There are a couple weapons in the game that you get, and they're just kind of like ridiculous. They don't negate the challenge necessarily, but they can be used in ways that make them very powerful compared to what you start with. But generally, you will like the sword I'll probably finish this playthrough of Dark Souls with. I got it like level 10, and you just use it forever. It's kind of, I don't know. It's another like sort of that just sort of like is the. It's a really nice balance. I just find that like a level 15 version of the sword is way stronger than the level 1 version of the sword, but at the same time,
so enemies
it's
scale
not enough.
Enemies scale in Dark Souls?
No.
So like the level 1 like skeletons or whatever, the easiest thing, like the rats in the sewer, like the easiest thing in the game.
Yeah.
You come across it as like level 20, you still have to engage it with like your full attention.
No, you'll
can't imagine
one-shot
that's
it.
the case.
You'll
Yeah,
one-shot it,
totally.
but I'm saying like things that are far behind you are still threats in real ways. And if you're just half-assing your way through an old zone, you will die. Even, that's more true in 3 than in 1. 1 was not balanced fully to the point where there's some stuff you can do in it that like the designers didn't quite want. Like, so once you get the best stuff, you can kind of cheese shit that in a way that's not really like consistent with the rest of the game. So it's possible, but the core baseline experience is that like, yeah, if you're just kind of half-assing your way back through an old zone, you're not really being very careful. There's a good chance that you could die, and it's embarrassing. Even though you're by yourself, you're like.
And also like Dark Souls, I think from what I've seen of my friend playing it, tends to do something where you learn how to like fight this enemy one-on-one, and then suddenly there's like 2 or 3 of them and you're fighting them all at the same time.
They build that very deliberate.
I mean, my friend I forget exactly what he was like trying to do, but he was like fighting like ice horses or whatever, and he would fight like one of them, and then like 2 would show up, and he's just like, oh fuck, like,
then
dead,
it's a whole different thing then, right?
Yeah.
And it's way
because
harder.
I mean they both have like the same like attack patterns and stuff, but they're like one is doing an attack at one time, one's attacking at another time, and you have to pay
exactly
attention to both,
like how when he does his super move, how to position yourself. But when he's doing his super move and the other guy's position, you're just like, it's a whole different thing.
Right,
and
exactly.
But it's not, it's still like achievable in a really nice way.
Yeah.
But it's
You just have to
tough.
think like a little more through what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I have to move this way to get away from this one, but I also have to move this way to get over here, and like, yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely like that sort of environmental sort of like level challenges, like, you know, going back, like you were saying, like in Fallout it's more about like, oh, you know, you can find raiders here, but you can also find raiders all the way over here, and you know, like you find a deathclaw right away, but like you're given like all this stuff, but you know, you upgrade your weapons and you upgrade your armor and everything, but you know, you were saying in Dark Souls, like you go to just a different area where like the rules are different.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Right.
And,
They
like,
had that, they had that in
tying
previous Fallout games.
tying this back into like, you know, No Man's Sky and the Solus Project and stuff. I mean, I again haven't played Solus Project. I don't know what sort of stuff you're gonna find in that, but like it would be so cool in like No Man's Sky to, you know, go to one planet, have to deal with like, you know, certain enemies of, you know, whatever their skills are, and then, you know, go to a completely different place and it's like, oh, like these are completely
It's a
different
different
animals.
situation,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that would. I hope that happens
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
Just kind of like to dovetail the whole thing. So we started talking about with Fallout and like the difference. In New Vegas,
Great game.
they had scaling enemies, but not everywhere. So they had zones in New Vegas that just had enemies that were just what they were. That's just they were at a certain level, and if you went there and you were underpowered, you were just screwed.
And that was like the Deathclaw Canyon or whatever the hell.
Quarry Junction.
Quarry Junction. There you
Yeah.
go.
Well, that was one specific one, but there's a whole bunch of other ones. There was like
Yeah.
a couple other like little zones that had specifically leveled enemies, and they're kind of scattered throughout the map.
I just remember Quarry Junction because it's like right next to Good Springs, and you
Yeah.
walk that way, and suddenly you're dead.
And they did that on they did that on
Oh.
purpose. They wanted you to be scared of the environment.
Yeah.
They wanted you to be like, oh, they wanted you to have an oh fuck moment of
Yeah.
like, oh, I went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like this is I'm not ready for this,
Yeah.
and get your ass kicked real quick. And
God, the boat flies drive me freaking crazy.
oh, whatever those stupid things. But yeah, so they had certain areas that were specifically not scaled to your level, where the rest of the game was. So it kind of kept everything semi-even keel. Like you crush, then they catch up. You crush, they catch up. But then there was like Quarry Junction, which was if you were under level 25, don't even walk it down that road because you're dead.
Yep.
So I like that balance. I like kind of how they have that set up where there's certain areas that you're just not supposed to be in yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like setting the hook as like a reward for like later on in the game when you are powerful or
You
more
can go do
powerful at
this.
least. You'd be
Yeah.
like, you know what? Maybe I can go back there and see if I can take those guys now because
That's
I
the
couldn't
best.
even
I love
couldn't even
that.
touch them yet
Yeah.
before, and then you go back and well sometimes if you wait too long and you go back and,
And then
you're
it's
like,
just easy,
and you're just like
yeah.
it's a
Just
cakewalk and you're like
Yeah.
oh damn it.
No, and I'm definitely like at that point. Like I think I mentioned this before. I have to go kill Mr. House now, and then like deal with all of his Securitrons, and I'm just like, I got completely slaughtered last time, and I'm like, all right, it's been a while. I think I can do this. So I have to go back and like do that. I'm just like, I'm ready. Bring it on.
Yeah, I like how they kind of blend that.
So I want to talk about a game that handles all of these things very differently, which is Darkest Dungeon. And this is a game that like I might probably have talked about on the cast before. I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know if I have, but a while ago, this game kind of really like got me. Like it just really like clicked for me. But I hit a point where it was like the game is hard, and like, you know, it's another game that's sort of known for being very hard, which I guess is something I apparently like, but like I hit a point where I just really wasn't able to pull it off. Like you go into these dungeons with like, you get a team of 4 people and you kind of put a team together of like, okay, this guy is he's our frontline guy, he's our tank, you know, you get basic like tank, DPS, and healer. You can get away with not having a healer pretty well in this game, I think, but I usually keep one. And it's turn-based and it plays it plays to me a lot like an older JRPG where it's just like, you know, it's turn-based, you have infinite time, and you know your skills, and you just have to, like, position and play everybody according to the challenge. But I got discouraged, and I just figured, okay, this game is just too hard. Like, I can't play it. And then I was watching a video online recently that was discussing the gameplay, and they were discussing the gameplay more in the context of narrative design. And what they pointed out is, if in Darkest Dungeon, basically, if you play that game as a hero, you can't, and you will lose. And really, the way you play it is you recruit new people for your team, and then you use them. And when they become too mentally unstable, you throw them away, and you recruit new people, and you keep going. And I was not thinking of that game that way at all. And I think it's really interesting in a lot of ways that, one, it didn't occur to me even. That's how not into playing that way I am. And I felt kind of bad about it. Now I'm like, oh, you're fucking gone. Like, you're like, I just
get out of here.
Yeah, I just like, oh, wow.
Like Homer Simpson on the football teams. Like, you're cut. You're cut. I don't know why you're here. You're cut.
Yeah, basically, right. Like, you're in great shape. I just don't like your face. You're cut, right?
Get out.
Yeah, I have no people. Like, you pretty quickly get used to it, and and when you just stop and you think about that whole process, it has a lot of implications to life and games, and it's a great comment on the state of game design, and just it really blew my mind. And now that I'm playing it that way, I can actually play the game. It's
way easier.
It's way easier. It made the game so much easier. I'm almost wondering if they. I'm not even sure. I'm almost wondering if they rolled back the difficulty a little, because it's that much easier to me now. It
is. You mentioned this the other day, and I was kind of like, when the second you described that, I was like, that just sounds like a really bad company. It just sounds like a really bad place to work, where like the management doesn't know shit about what they're doing, and they just burn out their employees. And the second they show signs of cracking because they've been riding them so hard, they just get rid of them and bring in a new group of people to then ride and burn out.
It's a more and more common style of management these days. I mean, that's supposedly how Amazon runs their shit. Is they'll just burn you out and bring on the next enthusiastic go-getter until they're useless.
I mean, that's been kind of a constant criticism leveled at the game development industry since its outset, and it has a lot to do with, the schedule pressures of making a game, but also the fact that there's so many people that want to do the job that there's always a line of people out the door that haven't been jaded yet, ready to take your spot if you want to bail. So the management kind of uses that kludge as like, well, if you can't handle the 80-hour weeks, well, there's the door. We got another guy in here tomorrow. Like, no sweat off our ass.
Right.
But you also see like a lot of those companies that run that way are not doing very well. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are still making a ton of money, but I think that might have more to do with mind share and IP than how they're treating their employees. So I just thought that was an interesting thing, and it makes me wonder if they did what they did on purpose, are we reading into it and kind of applying our meaning to it, or did they rig the numbers of the game in such a way that they're like, we want people to play this way, to feel this way, and to do this?
Yeah, they do, because it gives you the advice to do that. Like,
the game says if somebody starts cracking, get rid of them.
Well, what they say is the way that you recruit, you get, there's a whole upgrade system behind. So every time you go out on a dungeon adventure, when you come back, you're offered like 3 new guys. So that's almost a full team right there. But they may not be the 3 guys that you need, right? Like, you might get 3 frontline guys, but like, you need. So it's not like a full guaranteed replacement, but there's a system in place where you upgrade the amount of guys available to you and how many people you can keep on your roster. So right now I can keep 14 people on my roster, 4 go out at a time on an adventure, and then I have a couple that go to, like, you put into like basically rehabilitation, but that costs money and it costs time. So that's where it comes in, that usually it's in your interest to just get rid of those people altogether and bring in a new person, because
Just being a terrible boss that
Yeah,
grinds
well,
people out and sends them out without letting them take
You're
vacation.
limited on money and
then
roster
paying people
spots.
having paid vacation to like get their mind right,
Right.
and come back, even though they're a higher level and the individual is more valuable to the team.
Right.
It's actually just from a cost standpoint.
Exactly.
Like I can't
that's
waste that.
exactly how it works. And I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see if I can finish the game with like a level 1 and 0 guy, or if the game in the end, and I suspect the case will be that eventually you cannot finish this game without leveling them up to some point and having them be of some power, right?
You can't give a sword of 1,000 truths to a noob.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So, but in the short term, it is better. Like, you still get these permanent things. You get money and you get trinkets that sort of power up your guys. So there's some benefit to grinding out just on level zeros, just using them up and throwing them away. You get permanent benefit to that. I think there will be a point where you can't do everything that way, but I think you can. The core engine is that, and it's
You can amass wealth by stepping on the backs of a bunch of low-level characters,
Yeah,
so that you
exactly.
can so that you can send some high-level characters out there well equipped.
in the game. While it doesn't. To answer your earlier question, it doesn't. Are we reading into this? I don't think so, because it'll say stuff like, it's like the wagon. They call it, like, I forget what it's called, but it's basically like the wagon area is vital. Is like is the most important aspect to like the health of your roster. So they're basically saying it there to me that you should be replacing people to keep your team healthy. You're basically relying on this one.
So I guess what's partially interesting to me is not knowing enough about the game to comment further, but you just mentioned that you can basically expand your roster so that you have 14 kind of heroes on call, so to speak, that you could send out in a group of 4 at any time.
Right.
So you send out 4 of those characters.
Right.
They all come back. They all survived. They level up. Is that...
If they survive, usually, yeah.
So they become more effective at what they do by surviving a mission and coming back. But they might be scared or something.
They're probably fully
they're
useless at that when they come back, yeah.
And so you can then take those people that have gained skills and put them in rehab, and while they're in rehab, you can send out other people to do other missions.
But if you did that every time, you net lose money, which is the way I was playing it. I was not really throwing anybody away like that. And you can't. Like, you just lose all the money that you got from you. It costs more to send all 4 of those people into rehabilitation than you made on the trip.
Right.
Really, you break even if you send 1 or 2, you'll break even.
I guess that's what I was getting at, is like, so that therein lies, you just answered my question. I was like, what's the break even point for that? Because it does seem like there is the fact that if there was no leveling system, and it's just like you have a fighter and a tank and a whatever, and there's no progression, like they could go on 20 missions but they still fight the same way as like a level 0, then there's no incentive to keep them around. You would obviously just replace them with a new person if they were mentally frazzled.
Exactly.
But if they get better at what they do and they're more effective in their role, the longer you keep them around, then I think it makes sense to kind of build the hero squad, right? Like, you send out 2 noobs with 2 grizzled vets to up the grizzled vets. They come back. You throw those guys in rehab. You cut the other 2 loose. Take a different group of 2 people that have been on missions before, pair them up with a couple of noobs, send them out on a mission. Hopefully they come back alive or whatever. Send them into rehab, and just kind of like running like a net benefit, of, like not necessarily netting cash, but upgrading your characters and getting more gear. And so like that's how you upgrade your character. But if you try to send them all 4 out together, you're never going to get there.
Exactly.
Because that's partially how I ran my squads in XCOM. Yeah. Because I always kind of, unless the mission was like,
that's what I did.
An S level difficulty or like one of the last level missions, I never sent out my hit squad like together.
Right.
I picked like 2 vets and the rest of the squad would always be newbies, because otherwise you never get vets.
Exactly.
Like, you always got to put a few new people out there and a couple of veterans to keep everybody alive.
Keep everybody alive.
Yeah.
The noobs get better. The vets hold down the fort in the real moments of difficulty, and and that way your best guys aren't out when you need them. And
in worst case scenario, those 2 vets come back hurt, like they can go into
but you got the
rehab.
other vets that you didn't send.
Yeah, the other
Right,
ones you didn't send are still on the roster for the next mission.
Exactly.
So you always kind of have a fresh supply of decent people, and the noobs that you've been taking become veterans over time.
Yeah.
So now your roster of like veteran level characters like grows like over time.
Yeah.
But XCOM rewarded rehabilitation a lot more than this.
Well, XCOM, it didn't cost you money in XCOM to do that. It was just more time. Like they had, depending on their wounds, they were out for X number of missions, basically.
Yeah.
It's sort of a really interesting balance of like expendability. Like with XCOM, like as you said, you send out some of the more experienced people with like less experienced people, and like if you get into a situation where someone's losing health, it's like, oh well, I mean, I'm just gonna let them like kill the rookie. So
Yeah, you will. Yeah, I mean that's something I've toyed with in XCOM 2 is putting my rookies on the front line to sort of eat the bullets.
Yeah,
I've definitely done that.
It's like you're bullet fodder right now.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, in some missions, like that's the way to do it. But.
Yeah, and we sort of started talking about it before I was going to ask, but it definitely changes like what the team is you put out there, and like as you're saying for this game, like it's you pick a team and you're like, okay, well at least some of these people are going to have to go into rehab,
right?
And I can't pay for all of them, so I'm putting these people in here and these people in here, and you're not going to rehab no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's interesting in a lot of ways. Like I said,
it makes you make like much more like calculated decisions, like based on resource and like logic, and like you can't just be like, I want to like do the best by everyone. It's you have to think about like the capital and like the gain, and it definitely forces you into a very specific way of thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it puts you into that kind of like really kind of these games are very resource management heavy. Mm-hmm. But since they made one of the resources somewhat personal, it changed your approach to it. Like if that resource was like gold or like trinkets or some shit,
right,
then you might be like, yeah, whatever, like I can lose some of that. But since it's like people's sanity and like a character, you're like, I don't want to lose that character.
Yeah.
Like I want them to get better, and like I don't want to lose them as like a person on my roster or whatever. You're just so like you want to build a thing, right? Yeah, and there's no way to build it if you cut everybody, right? Yeah. If you just send a crew of 4 noobs out, they come back, and you're like, yeah, you guys are all frazzled. Good luck. See you later.
Sucks.
4 new noobs sent out. Like at a certain point, it sounds like almost like your roster would be empty.
Yeah.
And you'd have, because you only get like 3 characters, even if you took all 3 when they came back, you'd have limited amount of the ability to actually have like a rounded lineup.
Right.
Like then you might get stuck with like 4 tanks.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you only have 3 characters left, like at a certain point where like you just can't use the other people or whatever. Like your roster would not only just decline in number but decline in usefulness, because none of them are leveling up. You never give anybody a chance to like gain the skills. They just kind of get cut the second they come back. So it's kind of like I said, you kind of have to get into the kingmaker mode of like,
it's a really...
I like the cut of your jib, Susan. I'm going to send you to rehab. Everybody else gets scram.
it's a really interesting like commodification of just people and human resource. And,
it's a nice approach to like gameplay and narrative, and like I said, it's just it made me think about a lot of things.
Well said.
Yeah. I say.
Things.
Made me think of stuff.
It made me feel things and think them too.
Made me feel emotions.
Stupid art form making me feel things. Though it is interesting though, because you kind of played the game and had given up on it as kind of like, this is just freaking frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's too hard.
Yeah.
And then somebody kind of opened your eyes to a new way of looking at it. And you're like, oh, well, I guess if I behave in my normal mode,
Yeah.
and not try to be perfect and like have every character be shitting sunshines and rainbows, then you could make progress.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it like teaches you like why why people act the way they do. Like, that's a horrible way to act. There's also some logic to it, right? Like, there's
Right.
also a good reason to act that way. It may not be a good enough reason, but there are reasons.
Yeah.
There's things that acting that way does for you, and
Well, I mean, that's, you know, and I'm not even trying to play like the devil's advocate hard in this one, but it is, but like you said, it makes you think
you
about.
are just the devil.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
For those people that were, you know, it's like Yahoo announces 10,000 layoffs or whatever, and everybody's like, how the hell did they just fire 10,000 people?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, most of the times those decisions are like, we just kind of like looked at the numbers for the company and we just hired way too many people,
Yeah.
and our products aren't selling as much as we thought they were going to, and we can keep everybody on and everybody will be out of the job in 2 years,
Yeah.
or we can trim the fat now and we can survive for 5.
Right.
And if we write the course of the ship in that 5, then we'll be making money again. And like, there's a game plan that's behind that. Like, the people who come up with that aren't usually evil,
No.
but
Right. It's
but it's
really-
easy to vilify them being
Yeah.
like fucking bean counters, giving people pink slips, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, sometimes it's
One person says that. Fucking bean counters giving people pink slips.
there's a guy.
His name is Fudge. Yeah, it's sort of very like Machiavellian, like, you know, the end justifies the means, like, you know,
Yeah.
the overall goal is
The alternative,
well,
yeah.
right?
the
The,
thing is-
alternative is literally complete failure.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
sometimes it's that. Well, I mean, the people who deserve to be vilified are the people who are like, you know what? Like, the company did really well this year. We're showing, you know, $2.9 billion in profits. We could show 3.6 if we can 10,000 people.
Right.
How you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
A little bit extra money, a little bonus money going around if we fire a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
You guys will get all their money. How
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that?
all the money, all their salary money. We're gonna split it up around
Yeah.
the table here. Like, those people deserve to be dragged out into the streets.
Yeah.
But the people who are just like, all right, we have to make a hard call here. Like, we're all out of a job, or some people are out of a job,
Yeah.
and like that happens. You know, if you're part of any company that's running, like, sometimes you got to just run triage like that when you
Yeah.
don't have that ability.
Definitely.
So I guess it comes down to in Darkest Dungeon, which one are you gonna be? Are you gonna?
You can only be the one thing. That's the only like flaw. I don't even call it a flaw, but that is a one thing I guess to keep in mind is that it's not really a choice in that game. So
I mean, but maybe
I
that's
guess the
maybe
only-
that's like the point though. Like, as I was saying, like, if
Yeah.
I started playing the game, I'd just be like, oh, like, I want to keep everyone, like, I don't want to be
Right.
mean, like, blah blah blah. But like, you know, the game would force me to like make that decision
Right.
and, you know, have to do, you know, have to throw people out and just be like, oh, like, damn, you know.
Yeah, you're probably right. That probably is the point. Is they're trying to give you that specific experience, which is fine.
Well, they're trying to give you that experience, and
which is kind of the point of the
And it
game.
well, it also makes the resource management more. There's more depth to it there. Where it's
Yeah.
like, there's, you know, if you look back at the old Final Fantasy like tactics games, like, you get all the time, you'll be coming out of battle sometime, like later on in the game, it'll be like 3 people want to join your ranks, and you can just like go through and like accept them, and you could accept everybody who wants to join you and just not use them, and it doesn't cost you anything. They just sit on your roster as like a potential usable character later on
Right.
down the road if you feel like it.
Yeah.
And by the end of the game, you know, like, I flip open my character roster and it's like there's 50 people in there. Who the fuck are all these clowns? I got like 35 level 1 jokers on my roster.
Yeah.
And like a hit squad of 8 people that are like level 99.
Yeah.
That they're the only ones that I use. So it's like, all right, well, I guess all these guys are useless. Like, but it doesn't stop you from like taking them. Whereas in this game, it sounds like you kind of only have a certain amount of roster slots. You only have a certain amount of money to pay to keep people on your roster, basically.
Yeah.
Because if somebody comes back and they're like ready to lose their mind, and you don't send them to the rehab, they're basically just as useless as not being on your roster.
Right.
Right.
They're just dead weight. Yeah. But,
Or can you put them on your roster and like wait for them and like wait till you have the money to send them to the rehab?
Oh yeah, yeah. They can stay in your. Yep. And I think their sanity naturally recovers by very little. So
it's extremely slow or something like that.
What's that?
It's extremely slow or something.
it's extreme,
like
it's so slow that it's not really a system you would rely on. It's a thing that like it's like if you have a guy who's just like a little stressed from the last one and you don't need him, it's like probably best to just leave him alone really a couple of times. But like that's not a way. That's by no means a way to like.
Yeah, because
run your
otherwise you'd
team.
run out of other people before you needed
Exactly,
to use
right.
it.
You run like by the time exactly, yeah. So yeah, it's just like it's a really interesting game in that way, and the moment to moment combat's really fun. So I really highly recommend it if you're into like turn-based stuff or like XCOM or JRPGs and stuff like that.
Is it on sale right now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, actually, definitely is. It was one of the featured games yesterday on the first day of the sale. I don't know how on sale it is, but it is on sale.
There's levels.
They are.
Yes.
It's not like Doom on sale. Oh, actually, it might be Doom on sale.
Well,
How much are you on sale? Level 1 to Doom.
2 Dooms.
Double the Doom.
give me 2 Dooms, please. All right, cool. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely some
once
interesting
we got
stuff.
away from Overwatch.
That was part of the ground we covered.
Again.
Yes.
Well trodden by this point.
Well, they announced new stuff. That's what we were talking about.
Same game, though. No, I'm kidding.
They're adding a new mode for,
Yeah?
for people to be competitive and take it all serious. Like,
Oh, fancy.
yeah, we were just talking about how we're not interested.
Yeah.
That's like me with a game in general.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, anybody have anything else they want to jump in?
No.
Come to Game Space.
Yeah, absolutely. Come through, hang out with us, check out the calendar for upcoming meetups. Follow us on Twitter at Buff Gamespace. We're on Facebook and the website and all the other normal places. Meetup page has all the updated calendar info. Come check it out. Come out to an event, meet some local developers, and
Come to Arcade Night and play with a Vive.
yes, come play VR things.
Steal Futch's Vive from him.
Steal it from me. Try to get Kendall off of it.
Good luck.
All right, and we're out.
Bye.
Sayonara.